We are back for another chapter in the Adventurer, the GT185. So, when I left off last time, I was telling you we were going to do some electrical, that I had a chain ordered. The chains come in, and we put that chain on, and we're going to adjust that out, and that's going to allow me to button up all this down here, get this all trued situated, and put the side cover on. So instead of just a bunch of talk like most of these YouTube videos, let's get going. All right, the chain is on. It's adjusted. And I adjusted a tad on the tight side because it just seems like within 1 mile they just loosen all up. So I don't want it hitting any of the painted areas because it's ultra loose. And I'll recheck it after I ride it once. But I had a subscriber tell me that there were shock absorbers on eBay, and I went there, and I appreciate the heads up. The shocks were nice, and they looked like they were going to be real perfect replacements. The only thing is you know me, I do not like to wait for anything. I'm not going to hold this project up for shocks because it's going to come out of the UK. So I spent the time, and I just cleaned these up, and they look great, and they're going to be fine for they're working fine. It's just they're a little pitted. You might be able to see a little bit of the pitting in there. Right in there. But anyhow, they're fine. They're shiny, they're beautiful. So let's move on. And with all of our new plated washers, it's going to look just beautiful. Now I also put on the rear, the torque link, torque the nut, and the safety clips. On the shock absorbers, I had every washer except one. And I don't know about you, but every classic bike that I have pulled apart, they cannot seem to get the washers in the right position, and they lose them and put something different anyhow. So I had to replate one. I think that's it there. But here's a helpful tip. A helpful tip. I used to wire these nuts in a way that the wire would come around and come across the head so that it wouldn't come out, wouldn't slide out. And that worked well, but I found that what I'm doing now is I'm keeping the little hoops in this wire, and then I just put a whole new set of nuts in there, and then you just tighten them up. So this is what it looks like when it's just sitting on the bench, after you've used it and you've pulled all your stuff off. And you want to put in another set of nuts or bolts, right? Well, before, this was all messed up because I was bending them around and doing this. Well, by doing it this way, I keep the circles still in the wire, only they're spread apart. So you put it in there, tighten it back up. Put this one in, and tighten them back up. And that way, you're using the same wire, and you're not having to redo all this wiring 3 and 4 times every time you have a new set of bolts that you want to plate. So anyway, that's what that looks like. That's what I've kind of grown into. See, this won't come out. This bolt won't come out, but when I open it up, there it comes out. When I close it back up, it's going to hold it in there. Plus, as long as you don't tap on the bottom of the tanks, and want to push them up out through the little hoop, they're not going anywhere anyway, because this is how you dip them in the tank. And you've got this wire that's bent over the side and just dips in the tank with the nuts in there. But by twisting them tight like that, they're not going anywhere. So that's something I learned, and it's made it a lot faster doing the plating. Okay, so this is a batch that I plated, and because I took a picture of the bolts and the bags with the bolts laying right below it, I know that these are for the coil and these are for the front fender. So they can go right back in their bag and ready to go. So now we're going to do the battery box with all these beautiful new bolts and shims and things. So I've just got it laying in here. As you can see, it's just laying. And now we'll install the new original shim and the washer. Oh, doesn't that look nice? And we'll do that with all three. I also installed the bottom pad that I cleaned up and put go-go juice on. As many pictures as I take and as many videos as I do, it's still a challenge to figure out how things go back together. So this has got to go in before I mount this, and I guarantee you I'm going to mount and dismount this battery box 3, 4, 5 times before I get it right. So knowing I've got to get this inside here before I mount the box, I'm going to work on replacing this sight glass. And here are the parts. Brand new sight glass, and I'm going to figure out how to replace it. So this is a 30 millimeter, and that's all it took to unscrew the sight glass and get it out of there. So there is your metal tab. I'm going to figure how to get that out of there. I think that's just a reflector. And then the new seal, new sight glass. And let's put a little lacquer thinner. Let's try and get this all nice and beautiful. Get all this faded yellowed oil out of there. And so that's cleaned up. There's a little yellowing, you're just never going to get that out, but altogether this looks beautiful. So got the new washer on the sight glass, and it says made in Japan. Be nice if I could put it right there. The threads would end up right there. Let's see what we can do here. No, it's not going to happen. So I don't want to go on any tighter than it was. And if it leaks, I'll tighten it back up. But there it is. That's a whole hell of a lot better than that. And I can't believe that I just got this piece. This is one of those pieces I'm talking about. How do you find this piece still new from Partzilla or Rocky Mountain, which means they're getting it from Suzuki of America, still in stock, for a GT185, a sight glass window? Unbelievable. Like I said, I had to take this battery box out again because I could not put this bottom toolkit holder on. It just wouldn't go on, so it was easier to pull it off. I had to pull the rubber boot off of here to get it to slide in. Got the nut on it. Nothing's tightened because I'm probably going to have to pull that off again. But I've got the tank in here, And the tank mounts to that holder, to the toolbox holder that I mounted. So there's the mount right there. So I've got all that in there. I'm going to start putting some of the wiring in and hopefully get to a point where I feel good enough to actually tighten and torque down the battery box and the other mounting plates. Now we need to clean up the starter solenoid. Clean this as well as we can. Lubricate the pins with, as I do with all my connections. You use the dielectric grease and these nice new bolts. Alright, so these are all cleaned up. And they're going to look good on there. So I've got to take this apart, clean it up, clean this bag out because it would look real nice if it was clear with new fuses. That's about as good as I'm going to be able to get it, which is quite a bit better than it was. Now I just got to get 3 20-amp fuses and put the bag back on and the fuse in the fuse holder. And the last thing to do is a continuity test, just to make sure that she is trying to do this one-handed. Hear that? That means the fuse is good. I'd hate to put this all back together and not do a test on the fuse. Chase that demon around for an hour or two. Why it won't start or the key won't turn on or whatever. So let's get this all back together and start hooking up some of these plugs and wires. And that is a good place to move on to something else. We've got it all, everything mounted. I still don't have the top bolts here secured till I know I'm good, but I took many pictures of exactly where these go. I've got another one that goes about here and another one down here, but that's after I get my brake light switch on, which I'm gonna probably do that next. And as you can see, if you take a lot of pictures, it'll show you which cable is being held, where the little bend goes, so you know exactly which way around they go. It's nice when you have one like this that's so original that you can just, document it as it comes apart and put it back together. It just makes life so easy to know which way this wraps around. And it also helps you determine the size, because there are different sizes. You've got a longer one here, a shorter one, and this only goes one spot, so. But all these could be put in the wrong spot, but we don't do that because we've got an archive of pictures. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this negative ground. And as you can see, there's a lot of green, and that's just corrosion and battery, and and it would work. I could clean it up. It would look really good. But you don't know how far down this corrosion goes. And I just, I bought a spool of this just for this purpose on a few bikes ago. Because this cable is probably off like maybe a GS1000 or even bigger. It's a much heavier cable. And I thought about using it, but it's too short. Comes up about 8 inches too short. And then I had this cable, and this is stranded copper. Would work fine, but it's much heavier than what was stock. This is going to look, it's going to look stock when I'm done with it. All right, so cut it to length, and I'm going to harvest this eye here because it's just perfect. And then I'm going to use this because it's really close to that. So I'm not going to be able to get this off. I'm sure I could if I really worked on it, but these are just as good, and they're going to look better because they're going to be all perfect and new. So every now and then you need a little bit of a break. So let me tell you what I do. I take a Famous Amos cookies, the little bite size, and then take about 4 chocolate chips and put it all in your mouth. And now we'll pull this off. Try not to lose any of the strands if you can. There we go. Now terminate. So what we're going to do is we're going to terminate the ends of this. And to do that, put a little bit of flux on there. And then we're going to clean the tip of the soldering iron. Get a little bit of solder. And get it all nice and full of solder. So what I had to do was I had to open up the end in order to get this in there. It would not fit through that hole. So I opened it up. Now we're going to terminate this in. We're going to solder in here, put a little solder in, and then when you join them together, it makes an excellent, excellent connection. Now I've got a little melted in there. Let's put it together. Might have to struggle with it just a little bit, get it all the way in. And then I'm going to crimp it. Crimp it down. And then heat it up with a little solder. That just gets it all going. There we go. And as soon as you can see it liquefy in the strands of copper, you know that you're liquid all the way through. There we go. All right. Now that is a connection. Not my prettiest, but definitely a connection. So I'm putting a smaller heat shrink down here, and then I'm going to put a larger just to cover everything up real nice, like so. And there it is. Before you terminate the other side, make sure you put your heat shrink on before. I don't know how many times I haven't put the heat shrink on. I put the fitting on the end, and then there's no way to get the heat shrink on. And there it is. Our ground cable. Should work perfect. Before. All gross and corroded. And after. All beautiful and terminated. All right, I've got the negative all set up and the rear brake light switch, which works well, and I use the multimeter to do a connectivity, test before I adjusted it, so it just comes on when you hit the brake. Next is the carburetors. So let's get the clamps and get. All right, the carburetors are on. Got the throttle cable on. I've got it routed as best I can get through the pictures. And now the next step is this whole front area. I'm going to need to do the brake and the brake line routing, because that's the biggest cable, and it's got a couple of connection points somewhere in here and a couple of breaks in the line that go down to the front caliper. So the first step is the caliper. Now it's a little dirty. I'm going to clean it, but I'm not going to mess with it because I'll have it looking really good and it's original. There's no reason to repaint it. There's a little flaking right here, but that's not enough for me to want to repaint this whole thing and risk orange peel or the wrong tone. So we're going to clean this up. The worst part about this is the bleeder fitting here, so I'm going to replace it. And I have a few, and this one's perfect. So while I'm letting the go-go juice soak in, it is time to work on the master cylinder. I'm putting this video in. This is a video that I found on my phone, a bunch of them, so I put them together, and this is when I was tearing apart the master cylinder, so I thought I'd put it right in front of where I'm assembling the master cylinder. Don't tell me how I got this clip out of here. Still don't have it out yet, but it's so deep, none of these can get in there. So I'm sure they make a tool. See how the only goes so far. But I was able to get in there and get one of the ears and pry it up. And there we go. There it is. Wow. Now, I believe this whole thing's going to pop out of here. Alright, I'm pushing this down, and it's spring loaded. I'm pushing on the other end of the spring. So there's probably a couple of different parts in here, but anyhow, let's just see if we can get this. There it goes. There it goes. You can see the right down here. Right in there. There's the little ring, there's the piston. So, I can actually grab this with some pliers now, maybe twist it a little. Maybe not. But it should come, even if I've got to go a little bit further with this. Oh, come on now. Alright, let's see. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Just so beautiful. But I'm going to make it beautiful. Beautiful pictures. That's all you're going to see when I'm done. So there it is. Completely. See if I can get a light in there. Completely cleaned out as far as no other parts in there. Well, I thought I had a problem. And you're probably not going to be able to see it, but it's shiny. I mean, that piston or cylinder there is shiny, but I thought by pounding on it that drill bit might have slid off and boogered up one side, and so I cleaned it up a little more, and all it is it's the small hole, and I don't know if you can see it right on this side. You can see it's a small hole where the fluid comes in from the reservoir. So I feel relatively good enough to order a kit for this. So I'm going to take the Dremel. I'm just going to clean out where the clip runs, just the little channel in there where the clip is run, and this is going to fit tight in there. So let's see what we got. Yeah, that's going to clean it up nice. Wow, that fit perfect. Oh yeah, I like that. I'm going to get another Dremel bit on there. This one will get the face of it. See the face in there. Let's see if I can show it to you. Kind of a before and after. And if this is getting too boring, then see that face is a little rusty down in there. So I'm going to get that with this. Just a little cleanup. There you go. I'm using my headlight. As you can see, probably could use a little bit more in there. It'll probably be about as good as I can get it, unless I can get in here with a little bit of a, oh yeah. Get a pick in there. Get some of that rust out of there. Yeah, that's a lot better. Let me get this pick right here. Yeah. Oh yeah, she's gonna be beautiful. Yeah, now doesn't that look shiny? Oh yeah. So, I've got to get these out. They just twisted off. I might even have to re-thread those, but that's okay. It's okay, because this is actually, I love the looks of this. I'm not going to do anything to it. A clean, clear plastic, and this thing's going to look gorgeous. As my tripod swings, what I have here is the slide and the switch. So I've shined up the 2 bars here, and then I shined up the copper on the slide, and that slide just basically, when you hit the brake, that slide comes from here and makes contact. So I feel good about that. Now I've just got to get those screws out. I think I've got one free. This other one just snapped off. But this one, with a little PB blaster on it, I should be able to get this one out. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to have to just drill it and hope for the best on the other one. There we go. One down. Now this one, it's going to take some careful drilling. Might even want to go in through this side. Maybe. Worst case is I would thread this and I would put a pop rivet in there. You know, it's really never coming out as long as it works. And then even if it doesn't work, you know, you've got the rear brake pedal light. So this is for the front brake. And what it does is it hits the brake light in the back when you apply the front. All right, I drilled through the back. The back had it just gave me the right angle. I drilled through the back. Now I've got to see if a screw if there's any threads left in there. If not, I might be able to cut some in and then thread a little screw in. This one, which I know is good, just going to run the screw on in there, make sure I got good thread on at least the one, which I kind of know I did. Okay, well, I am actually threading in a little ways, so I think there's enough there for me to cut threads back in. Just clean them up a little bit. Actually, this is going in nicely. Look at that. Look at that. Wow. I can live with that. I'm not even going to thread it. I'm not even going to cut threads in. I might put a little blue Loctite in it. Okay, problem solved. We're ready for the rebuild kit. So these parts were ordered a long time ago. Got the rebuild kit, spring, all the rubber pieces, the piston, and everything that I'm going to need. And also, believe it or not, you can find this stuff. And I think this was right out of Rocky Mountain. But can you imagine what this is going to look like? Completely rebuilt. It's going to look beautiful. And I love the color, the patina. It's gotten a little gold coloration, kind of a hue to it. And underneath you don't see it. But on the side and here on the top you can see it, especially on the cap. And I just love that. The writing is still visible on there. So let's rebuild this. All right, I put this all back together. The piston, all the seals, cleaned up inside here. So it was really tough to find how it goes back together. Now I had this extra shim, I don't know, and this clip. It's all part of what I separated out for the front master. So I'm not sure, but after looking and looking and looking online, this is how the spring and rubber seals go together. So the new kit had a brand new seal here, and I could see on the back the little star pattern, so I knew that it's the star pattern that's on here, and that would be pushing against the seal. And then the seal I had, and probably at one time this had it also, the seal in the new kit had a little piece of rubber sticking out that fit into a hole here. So I was relatively sure that the smaller end of the spring goes here, and then there was a new fitting here, and as you can see, that's all bent up. But I saw these round holes and concluded that that is the way that it goes back in. Then it has a washer and the C-clip, and then that's to where I got it to in here. Can't really see it. Then I put the rubber boot on, which is right here. So that might help somebody out there looking, because I couldn't find anything. And I'm not totally sure that's how it goes, but I'm 99% sure. All right, I cleaned up in here. It's hard to see, but there was a ring in there, kind of a ridge that this rubber seal fits in right here. And I've got a new one, so we're going to put that in there. All right, so I've got front master. Put all those bolts here. Either cleaned up the chrome like this and then plated the others. These are also chrome that I cleaned up, and then these are plated. And these are the two I need. Got a brand new reservoir. Oh, this to me is just pure gold. Now, looks like it can go either way. Let's see, we'll want to determine where. I would say you want the sight glass. Probably want this. Let's figure out where we want this little sight glass. I've determined the sight glass will go on the inside where you would see it as you were riding. And put the nice screws in that hold these down. But first, I need to clean up this metal retaining washer. So I cleaned the back. The back got nice, but if you don't have it super clean, it'll reflect. And what's so nice about having a brand new reservoir and cleaning everything inside it is that when you put the fluid in, it just makes everything look new. All right, I've got it polished. It looks beautiful. But I'm going to take lacquer thinner and I'm going to try and clean it as best you can. Just keep it surgically clean inside. And put it inside. Mount the screws. And I looked at the fish, and there are no other seals, just the round seal that goes around this plastic reservoir, and that's your seal. So we just snug those up. I'm not going to over tighten those. And there, and make sure you've got every piece in here. There's a plastic ring, and then you've got your rubber seal. This is in the cap. There you go. There we go, ready to install. And there it is on. So I figure now it's time for the headlight. Alright, so that's all cleaned up. Made in Japan. Suzuki. These rubber pieces, now they're a little bit beat up, but once you clamp them down, they do what they're supposed to do. And I could not find them. Probably didn't look that hard. That's how that works. So let's put this headlight together. So I didn't pay to chrome this, so I'm gonna polish it up. It's a little corroded here, but nothing big. Alright, so that's all shined up. Looking good. The chrome ring. It's been re-chromed, ready to go. So try to find one of these where both of the high and low beams work. Yeah, it's a little cloudy inside, but I'm going to live with it. I mean, there's nothing you can do. I thought about perhaps cutting out the whole electrical part, but the bulb inside is so big you'll never get it out. Only way you could really do it is if somebody had a way of unsealing this front beam, this front glass from the metal. Then you could retrofit like a LED inside. But we'll put this together. And so I've got the ring on. So with the ring on, got these little nuts and bolts. You put this outer ring, and it matches up with here. And then we're gonna slip that bolt through on both sides. Now these are special that I'm putting in. I've got the other side in, I'm going to put this in, but you can see there's actually a shank on there. And that keeps it from tightening up so far that you can't move the headlight. See, the headlight's going to go high and low, up, down with the adjuster right here, which is, most people know this, but I try and go through everything I can. But to try and find these particular screws would be probably a little tough. Now the adjuster, you can see there's a hole right here. Then I load a spring on it. These are all nice and plated, right? Plated, everything's plated. Slide a little plastic piece in. And then you just set it, screw it in far enough to set it, and it's adjusted. Alright, that's done. And ready to assemble onto the back. First thing is to put our O-rings on here. Alright, I got the two rubber O-rings, and I've got the rubber insulators, you might call them, with the smaller part is on the inside and the larger is on the out. And there it is. Now the microfiche shows that these are the grounds for the turn signal, but I'm finding that the actual turn signals, the wires go through here now. I'm going to have to see because these never had the ground on them, and I don't think this headlight ever was inside, no one ever went inside this headlight. So we'll just see how that works out. So So I just put it on temporarily because next I'm going to start with the gauges and also the front brake line because it's a little complex. And the front caliper is on and it is torqued. I've had a couple of these hoses, they're plugged up. So what I did is I tried to blow through the hose and clean it out with some brake cleaner and then some compressed air, but nothing was happening. It was plugged. So what I did is I stripped some regular Romex wire and I stripped the outer cover off of it and then just ran it through the hose, and the plugs, I could feel a couple of different plugs. I could feel one right on here, both ends actually. So it just popped right through, and then I cleaned it out with the brake cleaner and blew it out, so that's ready to go. Alright, so I've got to end this segment, and I'll tell you why. I'm just losing track. It's so tough to have these bikes apart for 3 weeks or a month and then start back on it again and keep the video square. Especially my camera has some external or internal, I think one terabyte, of memory that I added. So sometimes the videos go into the camera section, sometimes they go into that card, and this one's just gotten messed up. So in this video, you're gonna see the master cylinder breakdown where I took it all apart and it was all, just messed up. And so anyhow, this just seems like a good time to tie this one up. I'm going to spend the time to edit and get all the videos as much as I can in line, and then we'll start up on a new segment. And when we do that, we're going to start with doing the brake lines, front headlight, probably move on to the exhaust, and probably encompass the paint. And then the final video would be just the final assembly, startup, kind of a test ride, that sort of thing. So I feel like I came from Shingletown now. I'm so screwed up with these videos. I just can't seem to figure out how to keep them separated. So I'm going to start off with a new one. So in Shingletown, this is probably your favorite video because it's going to jump around. It has jumped around. I think you've probably already seen it. So until the next time, we will see you on the next video.